Okay, welcome back. Going to do our second leg of the flight here from Washington State down to Florida. Obviously headed from the western edge of Washington all the way down to Key West. If you're tuning back in for part two, this is it. This time here, we're actually going to be going from Boeing Field, which is where we landed previously. And we landed about 7:45 in the morning or so. And we'll be taking off and going to, I believe it's called Cle Elum Municipal Airport here, which is just a little bit further to the east, just past the mountain ranges. It looks like it should be a rather pretty flight, 63 miles, 47 minutes. And we'll stay, relatively, I won't say relatively low, but we won't be going up all that high. Doing this still on the 172. And without much further ado, it'll be starting up, like I said, right after the landing of our previous flight, which was at about 7:30, 7:40 in the morning. So 7:50 is going to be our takeoff time here. Just enough time to put a little bit of gas in the Skyhawk. So we'll go ahead and hop into VR. Close that off. Don't need that. So the route itself does go through some mountainous terrain. Obviously, I haven't gone through and taken a peek to see exactly the elevation changes. I know that the 9,500 feet that it was showing in the system initially for our flight will be more than enough to get us safely out of the area without too much trouble. So we'll see just how far or how high we have to climb in order to get ourselves there safely. That's just me knocking stuff over in VR. Trying to adjust the seat height a little bit. I like that position. So it should be off to the east again. And let's go here and take a peek real fast. On course heading is going to be 093. So we'll just go ahead and move our heading bug around once again to about 095 or so. And we'll see what the winds are doing. Otherwise, we should be good to fly. We have an airliner on the runway right in front of us. That's going to become awkward in a few seconds. 55 knots. We are climbing, and we will turn ever so slightly out of his way. You would think so. Oddly enough, I set this up to be just departing off the airfield, and according to that windsock, winds are still favoring the north, so I'm not really sure why there was an airliner that was apparently on the ground taking off and going back in this direction, but as you just saw, there was one. So here we go. That's flight sim for us. All right, just like last time around, we'll pitch the nose for about 80 knots. Let's get these flaps up. We'll be turning this radio off so we don't have to listen to it because he's going to get really annoying really quickly. I don't even know why he said we have a north departure, because we don't. We're going to turn off to the east, and they would have known that in real life, so we won't even worry about it. Turn this to something that won't have anyone talking to us on it. And we'll just keep that turn coming around here towards the east. And we'll see what the train's looking like as we leave Seattle and go towards some of the more sparsely populated parts of Washington State. So obviously right now it's about like I said, 8 a.m. here in Washington State. We still are running live weather, which looks to be about the same as it was when we got here earlier. We are not running live time. It's about 9 p.m. local here in Missouri. But so we're a few hours off there, and that's okay. I'm just trying to make the flight continuity be accurate. And yeah, let's continue going in this direction here. Our course is going to be coming back in, and we'll see, like I said, what this terrain looks like as we get a little bit closer out. So off to our right there, that is the Seattle-Tacoma Airport, known as the Big Airport. I've actually flown into the one that we just left there, Boeing Field, right back there, a few times in corporate jets. Used to go there semi-regularly, which is a nice airport, easy to get into, easy to get out of. But you are right there in the shadow of the larger Seattle airport, and you do have all the airline traffic and cargo aircraft traffic that's kind of going in and out of Seattle. And then, of course, with Boeing Field being what it is, you have all of the standard Boeing airplanes that are being manufactured there. There's so many, 737s, 777s, 787s were there. I got a chance to see the 777X, the 777-900X when it was there also. It was on the field. Got a couple good pictures of it when I was on the ground waiting for a departure. It's a really cool looking airplane, gigantic. It's the first airliner with the foldable wingtips, which is I know a real big deal. I have a friend here at Boeing. I know she was a big part of the development of those folding wingtips and that airplane, along with her team here at Boeing. And yeah, no, they were very, very proud of it. And it's a pretty cool airplane. It was really cool to get to see it in person there as they were doing takeoff and landings at Boeing Field. So as we go up here to the east, I think, so we came over at 7,500 initially, and then we cruised on up to about 8,500 feet because of some of the mountains that were there. Let's go ahead and level off. Let's cruise around here at 35 for a little bit. I know we're gonna have to climb a little higher as we get to the mountains, but or at least I would expect that I'm going to need to climb a little higher to get to the mountains. But let's cruise here for a few. It'll allow us to get a little bit of airspeed, start pushing the land behind us here, so we can start stretching our legs and getting out in front of us. We're currently full rich. I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can watch that EGT there. So if you're not a pilot and you're trying to figure out what I'm doing here, so the mixture is this red knob here. It's the one that's moving in and out. So your mixture controls the amount of fuel that's going into the engine so that you can keep what they call a stoichiometric air to fuel ratio. I believe it's 13 to 1, 13 pieces of air for every 1 particle of fuel. But that's what you want. If you have too much fuel, the engine's going to run cooler. But you're essentially wasting gas. If the engine has too little fuel, it's amazing. Fuel actually does a job for heating up engines because it's going to heat up the temperature of the exhaust. If you have too little fuel, the exhaust temperatures actually start to run incredibly hot. The engine starts running what they call lean. If you keep running it too lean, you run the risk of detonation or incomplete burns in the combustion chamber. Sorry, not incomplete burns, but detonation in the combustion chamber. Hot pockets start to kind of show up on top of your cylinder walls, etc., and you run this risk of having explosions happen that are not what you want inside of an engine. You want a nice clean fuel burn right on top of the piston, and I'm sure some mechanic's going to come in and say, "You're wrong, you've said it all wrong," which I'm probably doing, but that's the basic gist of it from everything that I've ever been told, everything that I've noticed when I was working on airplanes, etc. So you're trying to control the amount of fuel. The difference is as you gain altitude in an airplane, the air density is going to decrease. As the air density decreases, you don't need quite as much fuel for each particle of air, so you adjust the mixture. Now in a car, you don't have to worry about that because you have electronic fuel injection. Most airplanes, and there are plenty that do have that type of control now, and that's known as a FADEC, a full authority digital electronic controller. The FADEC is used essentially like the computer in your car, and it automatically makes adjustments to the air-fuel ratio based off of the temperature, essentially, of the exhaust and the temperature of the incoming air, and the density of the incoming air. So it's able to look at all those things, parameters, via sensors, and then make adjustments to your air-fuel ratio on the fly, which is really awesome. Now, in old airplanes, you didn't have that. You actually had a manual mixture control. Old cars were the same way, where you had manual chokes and stuff like that. But you have the ability to adjust the mixture. So what we're watching over here on and I'll see if I can get this airplane kind of trimmed out so that it'll stay somewhat level. So over here, by our fuel flow gauge, you have this thing called EGT, which stands for exhaust gas temperature. The EGT is a probe that sits right into the exhaust pipe, where all 4 exhaust pipes on a Skyhawk engine come together, and then there's one exit pipe. So the EGT sits down there on the exhaust pipes and actually measures the temperature of the exhaust. It's a central port on a Skyhawk. On some cylinders, you would, on some airplanes, you had what was called CHT, which is cylinder head temperature, where you measure typically the hottest cylinder, based on the way the cowlings are arranged or where the engine's arranged, and you would actually measure the temperature of that particular cylinder head, and you're trying to find a point where it's able to run at its maximum temperature without a decrease. That's the easiest way, I guess you could say, to set exhaust gas, or to set mixture. So here with the exhaust gas temp, we're actually going to start to slowly decrease our mixture. We're going to lean it out, as we call it. So as we pull this little knob out, that's going to lean, and that EGT on the left is going to start to go up. Airplane's got a little bit of bumps coming around because of the turbulent air from the hills here that we're flying over. That's kind of causing, it's not causing the actual climb, that's just me doing 4 things at once here. But it's causing the bounces. So all the little movements you see there are actually as a result of that. So as I keep pulling this EGT, or this mixture out, you're going to see that EGT, the needle on the left, start to rise up. You want to kind of let it stabilize a little bit. We're not incredibly high, so it may not take a ton to get it to set into a position that you want it to. But if you keep pulling it out, you'll see how it starts to go down. So once it starts to go down like that, you're going to go ahead and increase it just a little bit. Now, if we were doing this here, there's this little knob, this little needle here. So you actually move this, and you can mark where it was at. And what you're marking is your peak EGT. So if I was to push this all the way back in, I have barely any movement there. So let's go ahead and pull it back out again. And it takes a few seconds to adjust, but we'll just come back out. And other things that will happen as you are adjusting your EGTs, you will have an RPM increase. So your RPM, if you start to pull it back too far, your RPM is going to start to decrease. You keep going past that, and the engine will actually start to sputter or die on you. You don't want that. So let's see. I heard the RPM change. EGT looks like it's been pretty stable. So I'm going to enrichen it just a little bit here because of the RPM drop. And let the engine run. So that's you're setting it there. We've got, like I said, you got peak EGT, you've got peak RPM, and it looks like that EGT actually did move up just slightly there. So it finally did adjust. EGT will be a little bit slower. Cylinder head temperature can be a little bit slower, but it's more manageable, I guess you could say, for keeping very precise measurements on your actual performance of a particular cylinder. Some really complex airplanes had multiple cylinder head monitoring, so you'd have multiple the ability to tune it based off of separate different cylinders on the engine. Specifically important on, I guess, 6-cylinder engines, or larger engines like that, larger, more high-performance engines. This thing here is going to tell me that I need to adjust this course to something around there. Getting pretty good performance here. We're doing about 110 through the air. We're showing 121 knots of ground speed right now, I think. So right now my course is off to the left. I think I'm going to follow this valley here. I'm not going to actually climb up. I'm just going to follow this valley to the left. Not the one that's further to the left, the one that's right here in the middle. It's kind of going in the direction I want it to go anyway. Looks like it goes right over this lake, and I remember seeing that lake on our flight plan when I was looking at it, so we're going to fly through there. And that was kind of one of my hopes, was that that lake would actually be more of a lowland lake between these mountain peaks and allow us to have kind of a little corridor or path we can fly through. So we're going to be slightly, we're coming back to our course. We'll probably end up, let's see, probably just a little bit north of the course, because I think the actual course would have us fly directly over top of that mountain range. And like I said, I'd rather stay just a little bit off to the side. So this is, like I said, leg 2. This one here said it was going to be 47 minutes. of scenic flying through the state of Washington here. And I think, I wonder if I could put on a tag, but I believe that's Mount Rainier over there. I think it's the biggest one that's close to Seattle. I'd say don't quote me on that, but if I go back through, I can check that out just to make sure, and then I can look that up and point it out. I know I've seen it before as I was flying into Seattle. This is actually my stepdad's neck of the woods. He likes to hang out up here. He was born and raised up in Oregon, or not born and raised, but raised in Oregon, and spends a lot of time in the Pacific Northwest. As a result, as a kid, I spent a lot of time in the Pacific Northwest. A little bit of time in Seattle, not a ton, but a little bit. We do have family there. And yeah, as a result of that, I've got a chance to see some of these things in person. I've seen it, like I said, flying. I fly corporate jets now, and we used to spend here quite a bit of time actually up in this neck of the woods, which was really kind of cool. It was a neat area to go into, always beautiful, as long as you could see. A day like this is actually kind of rare up here, where it's actually pretty in VFR, because so often you end up with crummy IFR days in this area, in this part of the world. So for it being like it is right now, here it is. I guess we're in mid to late April. I'm really kind of surprised that it is as pretty as it is. So, but I do bet that would be some chilly water down there. So yeah, I think we'll stay just to the left of this hill here. Pardon me. We'll follow the lake around here just to the left, and then we'll kind of scoot down the valley. Looks like it makes a nice little turn there. So as it does so, we will attempt to fly along the valley, and then if we need to climb up, we shall see if we'll have the ability to do so. Now, I will say this once again, if I was doing this in real life, I would not be flying this low in this area. I would like to have some gliding distance and have some more options. If you start looking down here at the terrain, once again, you've got a ton of trees, lots of foliage. You're going to have a really hard time setting an airplane down on this. Your best bet for setting an airplane down in a situation like this, a location like this, is probably going to be the water. And like we were saying, the water looks like it's going to be rather cold, and it's incredibly remote. Once this airplane sinks, the ELT is not going to work, and yeah, it does look like there's a road right there. I think it's a road. But yeah, I don't think I'd be attempting to land it on the road. I'd probably just be trying to put it in the water close to the shoreline, hope that I'd be able to make it out and get to that road, and that the airplane wouldn't sink deep enough that the ELT wouldn't be working for a particularly long time, or that the signal would be blocked. But that option obviously will go away as soon as we get a little bit further here into this valley, where suddenly we're not going to have an option to put it here on the beach. It's not even much of a beach to put it there in that little bit of water in the shallows. So obviously the terrain over there is significantly higher. We're going to see what it looks like. My fear, the pilot in me's fear is that you come around that turn and you notice that ridge line that's over there to the right that I'm staring at is going to connect to this ridge line over here to the left, and that both sets of terrain are actually going to be significantly higher. Right now I'm kind of looking at it thinking that this ridge line that's directly to my front of me, just ever so slightly right, we'll call it about 1 o'clock, is actually what's connected to that ridge line that's behind it. And if so, things aren't that bad. But yes, the proper etiquette here would be to begin climbing. And while we're here, we're actually going to talk a little bit about that. So I was doing some flying the other day. We were actually talking, well, not flying the other day. I was doing some flying here in Microsoft Flight Sim the other day, and got me thinking about chandelles. So if you want to look something up, if you're a board pilot wanting to learn, or a board sim pilot is wanting to learn a little bit more about maneuvers, there's a maneuver known as the chandelle. It was a maneuver that was required learning for pilots who are attempting to earn their commercial pilot's license, or commercial pilot certificate. So I spent a lot of time teaching chandelles. I also spent a lot of time demonstrating chandelles to my students. And of course, I spent a lot of time practicing chandelles when I was going for both my commercial certificate, my commercial pilot certificate, and when I was attempting to earn my flight instructor certificate, because you are required to be able to teach the same maneuver to your commercial pilot candidates. At one point I had gotten pretty good at them, but it's a max performance turn, and the description that the FAA always gave for it was a turn to get you out of a boxed canyon. So if we were to come into a canyon like this and we have a wall that's basically in front of us, it's a maneuver that you would use to turn the airplane around while gaining maximum amounts of airspeed, maximum amounts of altitude, trading off airspeed to do so. I attempted to do one inside a flight sim the other day, and it was fine. It wasn't anything special. But it was exactly that. It wasn't anything special. It didn't look all that good, and I will guarantee that if I was to grade my own performance doing it against my performance as a student doing it, it would be maybe kind of abysmal. There's not any real use for them if you do proper planning and have an aircraft that's equipped and capable of flying at altitudes where you don't have to find yourself in a box canyon. That's one of the things that is so important, I think, for piloting in general. And if you're thinking about going into piloting, if you're thinking about becoming a pilot, one of the things that I would really suggest is it's so much of it is just decision making. You start looking at movies like Top Gun, where they're attempting to say, you don't think, you just do. Those not really true scenarios. If you're in that situation and you're just kind of flying the airplane always by the seat of your pants, yes, you're probably unsafe and dangerous, and that's just the way it is. Military pilots, especially the fighter guys that I've talked to, the amount of planning, training, briefing, and debriefing that they go through is absolutely insane. And I know we're off course. I'm just trying to fly this valley, so we'll get back to it here as we make the turn back a little bit to the east. So they're prepping for all the eventualities. They're preparing themselves for what ifs that may or may not occur. The likely outcomes, the hopeful outcomes, and then all the other outcomes that are, I don't want to say equally likely, but are very much a possibility. So they're trying to mitigate those risks, and that's really so much of what piloting is really about. It's mitigating risk, and not necessarily just accepting it. Hey, we're flying down a valley that's low wet, or that is surrounded by high terrain. We're flying down this valley low, close to the ground. We're flying down this valley, and if we were in that situation, limited visibility or something like that. All of these things could be bad ideas. Maybe it's a better idea just to not fly down the valley, or to not fly on that day. And that's the decision-making piece of it. And that's what you kind of learn when you're going through pilot training, because there's going to be days where you wish you were out there flying the airplane, and lo and behold, you'll say, you're not able to because of whatever came up. Typically it's the weather was too bad and you weren't going to be able to go fly, and that's very disappointing. It's a terribly disappointing feeling when you go out to the airport, you're hoping to go fly an airplane, and the weather was too low for you to safely do it. But being able to say no to yourself and kind of getting that feeling out of the way will go a long way in the future for keeping you safe in your flying career. I'm assuming that's supposed to be a river of some sort. It looks like one. All right. Come back around here and head a little further to the east again. This opens up nicely. Now that terrain there doesn't look all that good. I bet it looks a lot better from about 9,000 feet or so. But yeah, and I think that's the important part to take away if you're making the decision that you want to fly airplanes for a living. Yes, there will be risks, and you can't get rid of every risk. And you have to mitigate the ones that you can, and find out what's going to be an acceptable level of risk for every flight, because flying is, well, I'm not going to say it's dangerous in the way that some jobs, occupations, and careers are dangerous. It's incredibly unforgiving to mistakes. And there's a lot of people that have paid prices in blood for that as a result. And our regulations are kind of written that way. There's an old saying that the regulations that exist are all written in blood. So if you see a rule that's been out there and you're constantly on the edge of always trying to push things to the envelope, you might be the reason that a rule gets created in the future. So just take note of that. and try to fly safe out there, right? This is me now currently just realizing just how long of a flight this will be to make myself get all the way to the East Coast. Like I said, it's at 30 hours. I'm going to break it up and not do too much so I hopefully don't burn myself out. But gosh, when the time comes that I need to cross Kansas and Oklahoma, I'm going to want to gouge my eyes out. That may be one that I'll have to just fly without VR because you know what? It just might be boring. Or get it up to altitude and turn on the autopilot. You know, as of right now, it hasn't been on at all, so it's just been me kind of doing my best to keep us on course. We've only done a couple of legs. We're basically following a GPS track. We're not doing this. You could do this via roads and towns and stuff like that, hills. The issue that I have, and the reason that I haven't done that, is because I don't like Microsoft Flight Sim's map. I wish they had a sectional. They have what they call a VFR chart, but it's not a real VFR chart. If they had a sectional, I would have it up in a heartbeat. And you know what? Maybe I should look that up. If they have one, I will pull it up and use it because that would be a lot of fun. And it gives you a lot of extra information, lets you know what the minimum terrain clearance altitudes are going to be for your sectors of flight, so you can make sure that you have the altitudes for your flight along your path to ensure that you're not running in the mountains in the mountainous terrain areas. That you're not going to be running into towers in different areas. You can actually see the towers and where they're at, as opposed to simply looking out the window to find them. So if I can find a mod for this that'll allow me to have a sectional chart up, and somewhere hopefully like right around in that area that I could kind of reference every once in a while, that would be a lot of fun. I don't need to make this really realistic and pull out an old E6B computer or anything. I think that would be taking things just a little bit too far. I don't care to be doing calculus on a slide rule up here just so we can attempt to show what flying was like in the year 2000. But the flight instructor in me would most definitely have taken this GPS on my student and turned it off. And I know that that's not the way that we're teaching students how to fly airplanes anymore, but that's just the way we taught students how to fly airplanes back in the day, because one of those circuit breakers pops because of some electrical problem and it starts to overheat on you, and now suddenly you're without it, or both of the breakers, because I almost guarantee they should be on separate ones. There should be one for GPS 1 and one for GPS 2. No, avionics bus 1, avionics bus 2. Yeah, I guarantee they're split. But yeah, if you were to actually lose either of those, and that was your primary source of navigation and the way you knew how to navigate, I'm just going to go ahead and climb up a little bit so that I don't have to keep going around everything, because I don't want to go that way right now. It's going to take me longer. We're going to at least get over top of this one. Yeah, if that was the way that you were navigating, that was your only source of navigation, it could be problematic. Because when it finally does go out, you're going to be looking at yourself completely lost. You know, for reference, one of my students, one of my best flight students, came out to the airplane, and I remember she was absolutely terrified of getting lost. She was going on her first cross-country flights, solo cross-country flights, not the dual cross-countries that were being done with her instructor. It took a lot of prodding to get that student to go solo. She had a bit of a fear of getting to the airport and being confused as to where she was at. She had a bit of a fear of having something happen, a GPS go out on her. So when she showed up for this first solo flight, of course, the airplanes that we were flying had a KLN 89B in it. I talked about that before. Little orange screened GPS. And she shows up to this airplane with this orange screen GPS in it and says, yep, so just in case that goes out, I have my personal Garmin GPS. And she had a little small movie map Garmin GPS. It was an aviation grade Garmin GPS that she had bought at some point in time, for the sake of keeping her safe while she was flying, in case she was flying airplanes that didn't have a GPS installed in them. And then after that, she goes, and then I've got this one here, which was her backup GPS. It was a secondary GPS, just for the sake of, in case that one was to fail, or if the charge went bad or the battery went bad, etc., she would have another GPS and be able to use that one um, for the remainder of the flight, so she didn't get lost. And it was humorous to watch. I understood it. She was a awesome pilot. Absolutely, probably one of the best pilots I ever trained in terms of being a natural stick and rudder pilot. Just the ability to get in an airplane and fly. And she studied, and her ability to aviate, navigate, and communicate was good. It was solid. Just had a bit of a fear, rational or not. When it comes to the fear that takes hold of you, you will find yourself doing some things that may look a little strange to the outsiders, but it's just the way you operate. And you got to find a way to work through it and go forward, because you can't let it just hold you back the entire time. And sadly, I think that I'm not sure. I've lost track of her. I lost track of her a long time ago. It was before Facebook, before the internet. So I don't know if she actually was able to continue flying, or if she got out of it. She, like I said, she was a fantastic stick and rudder pilot, fantastic book knowledge pilot. Um, and I really hope that she was able to get past it so that she could find an incredibly fulfilling career. It just thinks when you see talent, where people aren't able to continue pursuing it because of something like that. But that's just kind of the way it works, Not everyone who you start with is going to be there at the end, and even though you see the talent, not everyone's going to pursue it, or they'll find something else that fits their actual personality. And if it's a personality difference, then that all kind of makes sense too. So yeah, we're very close, 8 miles away. I believe the town was actually off to the south of the highway here. We got 4,000 feet. This one here is not going to be nearly in as low of an elevation area as the other one. And it's a short runway. It's only 2,000 feet of runway, so let's see if we can find... That's not going to work. I believe it's S93. But so here's one town. 5 miles. We should be able to see it. Flight plan. That's just my flight plan. I get to a menu so I can read what's going on that. Nope, we don't want that. Change fields, restore defaults. Nope, none of those. There should be a way for me to actually do this without... That did not work. I don't actually want a waypoint anyway. Yep, I should read the book on that. Alright. That's procedure. We don't really want that. Let's see. I bet there's no approaches. I mean, it's a itty bitty tiny airport, so that's not going to have one. But we'll start our descent. There's an airport right ahead, 1 mile. It's that one. So we'll push our mixture into rich. Power's going to come back to idle. Looks like a nice little tiny airport. Runway 7. Alright, we're below speed. We'll go ahead and get our first 10 degrees of flaps in. Nice little trees on the other side. There's 85 knots, next degrees of flaps. And remember what your old instructor said, you can always go around. Mixture's rich. Flaps are coming in. We're on speed. We're going to go with final flaps. Like the little cutout there in the trees. All right. Yeah. Windsock's nice and calm, so I was trying to look for you from the air, couldn't see you. And I saw there was a turnaround down here when we were coming in, so we'll use that. Easily could have stopped a long time ago. It's 2,800 feet in the Skyhawk. You can land one in, geez, 500 feet if you're trying. All right, looks like runway's clear. We'll taxi on back. And I think that'll conclude our second leg of this journey. So our next one will go obviously a little. Actually, well, so this leg was originally supposed to be a little bit further. I was originally going to go to Moses Lake. Then I realized that Moses Lake was going to take me an hour and 50 minutes. And I didn't feel like being in this sim for an hour and 50 minutes. Just didn't. It actually, I guess it wasn't an hour 50, but it was well over an hour. So this one here, being about a 40-minute flight, was going to be able to split some of that time up, almost split it in half. That was kind of my goal, and I think it's definitely achieved that. We've got a guy out here with a little tug, things you don't need even at small airports, but things that they actually probably don't even have at this airport. But if you know that, you can feel free to let me know in the comments. This is a really cool little spot, though. Kind of reminds me of the places I would have gone when I was in college and looking to go out and explore things with that aviation license, right? So let's go ahead and park it here. And yeah, thanks for watching part 2, and I hope you tune back in for part 3.